Anger is one of the most powerful emotions human beings experience, but it is also one of the most destructive. It clouds judgment, ruins relationships, and takes away inner peace. Training the mind to never feel anger is not about suppressing emotions, but about transforming the way we see and respond to life. The mind can be conditioned, shaped, and disciplined to remain calm and steady, no matter what happens around us. Many people believe that anger is something that simply happens to them, something beyond their control. They say, "I couldn't help it, I just got angry." But this belief is what keeps them trapped in cycles of frustration and regret. The truth is, anger is not a destiny written into your life. It is a choice your mind makes in response to what it perceives. Understanding this fundamental truth is the first step in training your mind to never feel anger. Think about this: two people can face the exact same situation, yet one reacts with rage while the other remains calm. Imagine two drivers stuck in the same traffic jam. One is honking, cursing, and filled with frustration, while the other is listening to music, breathing deeply, and waiting patiently. The traffic is the same, but the reaction is different. Why? Because anger does not come from the situation itself, it comes from the interpretation of the situation. The first driver sees the delay as a personal attack on his time, while the second driver accepts it as part of life. This difference in perception is proof that anger is never automatic. It is a choice, whether conscious or unconscious. When you start seeing anger as a choice, you take back your power. If you believe that anger is uncontrollable, you surrender your peace to external circumstances. Every rude comment, every disappointment, every inconvenience will have the power to dominate you. But when you realize that your mind chooses to feel anger or to remain calm, you begin to step into control. You no longer see yourself as a victim of emotions, but as the master of your reactions. This doesn't mean that training the mind is easy. Our brains are conditioned over years of habit. Many of us have learned to respond with anger from childhood. Maybe we saw our parents do it, maybe society reinforced it, or maybe we found that anger gave us temporary power. But just because it has become a habit does not mean it is permanent. Habits can be unlearned. The mind can be rewired. With awareness and practice, you can train yourself to respond differently. The next time something frustrates you, pause and ask, what story is my mind telling me right now? Most anger is born from a narrative. For example, if someone cuts you off in traffic, your mind may tell the story, "They disrespected me. They think they're more important than me." That story fuels anger. But what if you told a different story? Maybe they're in a hurry for something urgent. Maybe they didn't see me. Suddenly your anger disappears. The situation did not change, but your perception did. And with that, your choice changed. Understanding that anger is a choice also frees you from blame. You stop saying, "They made me angry," because no one can make you angry without your permission. People can provoke you, insult you, or disappoint you, but the final decision to react with anger is always yours. This realization is powerful. It means that your peace cannot be stolen unless you hand it over. When you practice this truth daily, anger loses its grip. Instead of exploding in frustration, you develop patience. Instead of blaming others, you take responsibility for your reactions. Over time, your mind becomes conditioned to remain calm no matter the situation. Anger may feel natural, but it is not destiny. It is simply a learned response, and what has been learned can be unlearned. You have the power to choose peace over anger, calm over chaos, wisdom over reaction. And once you embrace that truth, you step into a life where no one, not people, not problems, not circumstances can control your emotions. That is the first and most important step in training your mind to never feel anger. Awareness creates control. Anger often feels like an uncontrollable force, like a storm that takes over before we even realize it. One moment everything seems fine, and the next, words are flying, voices are raised, and regret is waiting just around the corner. The reason anger feels so uncontrollable is because most people lack awareness in the critical moment when anger begins to rise. They are caught in automatic reactions. But the truth is, the key to controlling anger lies in awareness. Awareness creates control because when you notice anger forming, you gain the ability to redirect it before it takes over. Think about how anger usually unfolds. It begins with a trigger, a harsh word, a small inconvenience, a personal setback. Your body immediately reacts, your heartbeat quickens, your jaw tightens, your thoughts speed up, and suddenly you feel overwhelmed by the desire to lash out. Most people don't notice these early warning signs. By the time they realize what's happening, the anger has already taken control. But with awareness, you can catch anger in its earliest stages and stop it from growing. This is where mindfulness becomes a powerful tool. Mindfulness is simply the practice of paying attention to what's happening in the present moment. Your thoughts, your emotions, your physical sensations. When you train yourself to be more mindful, you begin to recognize the subtle signals of anger, the way your breath becomes shallow, the way your muscles tighten, the way your thoughts shift toward blame or frustration. Instead of letting these signals escalate into an outburst, you pause. That pause is the foundation of control. Imagine awareness as a traffic light in your mind. Without awareness, you're always speeding through the red light, crashing into anger and causing damage to yourself and others. But with awareness, the yellow light appears. It signals you to slow down, breathe, and reconsider. That small gap between stimulus and response is where your power lies. It may last only a few seconds, but those seconds are enough to choose peace instead of anger. Practical techniques can help you strengthen this awareness. One method is conscious breathing. When you feel irritation rising, focus on your breath. Inhale slowly, exhale deeply. This act brings your attention to the present moment and calms your nervous system, giving you space to think clearly. Another technique is labeling your emotion. Simply saying to yourself, "I feel anger coming," helps create a distance between you and the emotion. Instead of being consumed by anger, you observe it, and observation gives you control. Awareness also requires honesty with yourself. Many people deny their anger until it's too late, pretending they are fine while the emotion builds inside them. True awareness means admitting, "Yes, I feel triggered right now," without judgment. By acknowledging the feeling instead of suppressing it, you allow yourself to process it in a healthy way rather than exploding later. Over time, this practice rewires your mind. The more you notice anger early, the less power it has over you. What once felt like an uncontrollable fire becomes a small spark you can extinguish before it grows. Instead of being ruled by your emotions, you rule over them. This is what makes awareness such a powerful tool. It transforms you from a reactor into a responder. When awareness becomes your habit, your life changes. Arguments become fewer, relationships become stronger, and your inner peace becomes unshakable. You no longer live at the mercy of your emotions. Instead, you live with clarity, patience, and control. Awareness does not mean you will never feel the initial spark of anger. It means you will never let that spark become a fire. And that is the true power of awareness. It gives you the control to choose calmness, to protect your peace, and to shape your life with wisdom rather than reaction. Empathy over ego. One of the deepest roots of anger lies in the human ego. The ego wants recognition, respect, and validation. It thrives on being right, on being admired, on being in control. When someone insults you, ignores you, or challenges you, the ego reacts like a wounded animal. It feels attacked, and out of that feeling comes anger. But the secret to disarming anger is not in strengthening the ego, it is in stepping away from it. And the most powerful way to step away from ego is by practicing empathy. Empathy is the ability to see life from another person's perspective, to understand their struggles, their pain, and their reasons for acting the way they do. When you cultivate empathy, you stop taking every action or word personally. Instead of thinking, "They disrespected me," you begin to ask, "What might this person be going through that caused them to act this way?" This shift in mindset weakens the ego and replaces anger with understanding. Imagine someone yells at you in public. The ego immediately interprets this as humiliation, a direct attack on your dignity. Anger rises and you feel the urge to shout back. But if you pause and approach the situation with empathy, you might realize that this person could be under enormous stress. Maybe they are carrying the weight of personal problems. Maybe they are dealing with insecurities, or maybe they never learned how to express themselves calmly. Their behavior reflects their inner world. It is not truly about you. This realization turns your anger into compassion. You stop reacting with rage, and instead, you respond with patience or silence. Practicing empathy does not mean tolerating disrespect or allowing others to mistreat you. It means refusing to let their actions control your emotions. It means recognizing that their negativity is a reflection of them, not of you. This understanding gives you emotional freedom. You no longer need to fight back to protect your ego because you know that their behavior is not a mirror of your worth. Empathy also deepens relationships. When you respond to anger with empathy, you create space for healing instead of escalation. Think of conflicts in families, friendships, or workplaces. Most arguments spiral out of control because both sides defend their egos. No one wants to listen, no one wants to understand, and so anger grows. But if even one person chooses empathy, the cycle breaks. Instead of clashing egos, there is understanding. Instead of flames of anger, there is a chance for peace. Developing empathy requires practice. One method is to remind yourself in moments of conflict, this person is a human being with struggles, just like me. Another is to imagine yourself in their situation. How would you behave if you had their stress, their pain, or their limitations? Often, you will realize that you might not do much better. This doesn't excuse their actions, but it makes them easier to understand. Another powerful tool is gratitude. When you focus on the good in your life, you are less threatened by the actions of others. Gratitude makes the ego less demanding. Instead of reacting with anger, you can respond with kindness because your sense of self-worth is no longer fragile. When empathy replaces ego, anger loses its grip. You no longer feel the need to argue every insult, win every fight, or prove yourself in every situation. Instead, you rise above. You choose peace not because you are weak, but because you are wise. The strongest person is not the one who shouts the loudest, but the one who stays calm while understanding others. Empathy over ego transforms the way you see the world. Instead of enemies, you see human beings. Instead of attacks, you see cries for help. And instead of anger, you feel compassion. This shift not only protects your peace, but also allows you to influence others with patience and kindness. That is true strength. Build emotional resilience. If anger is like a storm, then resilience is the anchor that keeps you steady while the winds blow. Emotional resilience is the ability to stay calm, balanced, and centered even in the face of stress, conflict, or disappointment. Without resilience, every small inconvenience feels like a personal attack. Every challenge feels overwhelming, and anger becomes the automatic response. But when you build emotional resilience, you train your mind to withstand life's difficulties without losing your peace. Resilience does not mean you will never face difficulties. Life is full of situations that can trigger frustration, traffic jams, rude comments, failed plans, and unexpected losses. The difference lies in how your mind responds. A fragile mind cracks under pressure, while a resilient mind bends without breaking. The resilient person may still feel the spark of irritation, but they do not allow it to grow into a fire. Instead, they remain grounded, choosing patience and calmness over anger. So how do you build this kind of strength? The first step is to develop self-awareness. Pay attention to how you usually react when things go wrong. Do you lash out immediately? Do you hold grudges? Do you let small problems ruin your entire day? Becoming aware of your patterns allows you to identify where you need to grow stronger. Resilience begins with knowing yourself. The second step is practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness means bringing your attention fully to the present moment without judgment. When you practice mindfulness through meditation, breathing exercises, or simply observing your thoughts, you strengthen your ability to remain calm under pressure. Instead of being swept away by emotion, you learn to observe it. This practice builds the inner stability needed to handle stressful situations without anger. The third step is to reframe challenges. Resilient people don't see obstacles as enemies, they see them as teachers. Every difficulty is an opportunity to grow stronger, to develop patience, or to practice self-control. For example, instead of thinking, this traffic jam is ruining my day, a resilient person thinks, this is a chance to practice patience and enjoy a few moments of stillness. Reframing situations in this way reduces frustration and prevents anger from taking over. Another important part of resilience is taking care of your body. Physical health and emotional health are deeply connected. When you are sleep deprived, stressed, or unhealthy, your mind becomes more reactive and anger surfaces more quickly. But when you maintain good habits, regular exercise, healthy eating, and proper rest, you build a stronger foundation for emotional control. A healthy body supports a resilient mind. Resilience also comes from letting go of what you cannot control. Much of our anger arises from trying to control people, situations, or outcomes that are beyond our power. You cannot control how others treat you. You cannot control every circumstance in life. But you can always control your response. A resilient person accepts what cannot be changed and focuses only on what can be, namely, their own state of mind. Finally, resilience grows with practice. Every time you choose patience instead of anger, every time you remain calm in a difficult moment, you strengthen your emotional muscles. Just like lifting weights builds physical strength, small acts of self-control build emotional resilience over time. Eventually, what once triggered your anger no longer has the power to disturb you. When you build emotional resilience, you become unshakable. Insults lose their sting, setbacks lose their weight, and difficulties no longer break your spirit. You move through life with calmness, not because life is easy, but because you are strong. And this strength gives you freedom, the freedom to choose peace over anger, clarity over chaos, and wisdom over reaction. Emotional resilience is not a gift for a few. It is a skill anyone can develop with practice. And once you cultivate it, you will carry within you a shield that protects your peace no matter what life throws your way. Letting go of ego. At the root of most anger lies the human ego. The ego is that part of us that constantly seeks validation, recognition, and control. It craves respect, wants to be admired, and demands to be treated in a certain way. When the ego is satisfied, we feel good. But the moment someone disrespects us, ignores us, or challenges us, the ego reacts like a wounded lion, and its roar is anger. The problem with ego is that it makes everything personal. If someone criticizes your idea, the ego doesn't hear it as feedback, it hears it as an attack on your worth. If someone cuts in line, the ego says, they think they are better than me. If someone doesn't give you the recognition you expected, the ego whispers, they don't value me. In each case, anger is the natural reaction, not because the situation itself is unbearable, but because the ego insists on defending its pride. Letting go of ego doesn't mean you stop valuing yourself. It doesn't mean you allow others to mistreat you or walk over you. Rather, it means you stop attaching your peace of mind to how others treat you. It means your self-worth is no longer dependent on constant approval or recognition. When the ego loosens its grip, insults don't sting as much, disappointments don't feel as heavy, and conflicts no longer consume your energy. One of the simplest ways to weaken ego is to practice humility. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less often. It is the ability to see that not everything is about you. For example, if someone is rude, humility helps you realize that their rudeness reflects their own inner state, not your value. If someone doesn't praise you, humility reminds you that your worth doesn't depend on their words. By choosing humility over ego, you disarm anger before it begins. Another powerful tool in letting go of ego is detachment. Detachment means not clinging too tightly to being right, being praised, or being respected. When you are overly attached to these things, every threat to them triggers anger. But when you detach, you create space. You understand that being right in every argument isn't necessary, that recognition doesn't define your identity, and that disrespect from others doesn't reduce your true value. Detachment gives you freedom, the freedom to walk away without anger. Ego also thrives on comparison. It constantly measures itself against others: who is more successful, who gets more respect, who has more influence. These comparisons fuel frustration and jealousy, which often turn into anger. Letting go of ego means recognizing that your journey is your own. You don't need to prove yourself in every moment. You don't need to win every battle. You only need to stay true to your peace. One practice that helps dissolve ego is gratitude. The ego focuses on what it lacks: respect, validation, recognition. Gratitude shifts the focus to what you already have. When you are grateful for your health, your family, your opportunities, and your peace, the ego's demands become quieter. Anger loses its fuel because gratitude replaces the need for constant validation. Letting go of ego is not a one-time event. It is a daily practice. The ego will always try to rise, but you can choose not to listen. Every time you refuse to argue just to prove yourself, every time you stay silent instead of defending your pride, every time you choose peace over being right, you weaken the ego. And as the ego weakens, anger fades. When you let go of ego, you no longer feel the need to fight every insult or control every situation. You rise above. You choose peace not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough to not let the ego dictate your emotions. That strength makes you unshakable, calm, and wise. In the end, the ego chains you to anger, but letting go of ego sets you free. Free to live with peace, free to walk away from unnecessary battles, free to enjoy life without being controlled by pride. And that freedom is the greatest victory you can ever achieve. Would you like me to now expand Keynote 6 into 600 words so your speech series is fully complete? Replacing anger with gratitude, one of the most powerful ways to train your mind to never feel anger is to replace it with something stronger and more uplifting. That force is gratitude. Anger and gratitude cannot exist in the same space. Anger focuses on what went wrong, what you don't have, and how you were wronged. Gratitude focuses on what is right, what you do have, and how you are blessed. When you shift your focus from frustration to appreciation, anger loses its power over you. Think about it when you are grateful. It is almost impossible to stay angry. Imagine you come home after a stressful day and something small irritates you. Maybe someone left a mess in the kitchen or forgot to do their chores. If you let anger take control, you explode and the situation escalates. But if you pause and focus on gratitude, you may instead think, I am grateful I even have a family to come home to. I am grateful I have food in the kitchen, a roof over my head, and loved ones around me. The irritation that once felt overwhelming suddenly seems insignificant. Gratitude changes your perspective. Gratitude is powerful because it rewires the mind. The brain naturally leans toward negativity. It notices problems faster than blessings. This is a survival instinct, but it makes anger easier to feel. When you practice gratitude consistently, you retrain your brain to look for the good first. Over time, your mind automatically shifts toward appreciation instead of irritation. Practicing gratitude doesn't mean ignoring problems. It means approaching them from a place of peace instead of anger. For example, if a colleague disrespects you, anger says, I will get back at them. Gratitude says, I am thankful for my career, my skills, and the opportunities I have. This one person's behavior cannot take that away from me. The situation hasn't changed, but your emotional state has, and that makes all the difference. There are practical ways to make gratitude a daily habit. One is keeping a gratitude journal. Every morning or evening, write down 3 things you are grateful for. They don't have to be big. Sometimes the smallest things, like a smile from a stranger or a warm cup of tea, carry the most meaning. This practice trains your mind to notice the good more often, making it harder for anger to take root. Another practice is gratitude in the moment. Whenever you feel anger rising, pause and ask yourself, what can I be grateful for right now? It might be your health, your loved ones, your resilience, or simply the fact that you are alive. This question interrupts anger and redirects your focus. Over time, this becomes automatic. You'll catch yourself choosing gratitude instead of reacting with rage. Gratitude also makes you more compassionate toward others. When you appreciate your own blessings, you stop resenting what others have or how they behave. Instead of comparing, competing, or feeling slighted, you learn to celebrate life as it is. This reduces the ego's grip and weakens anger at its root. The more you practice gratitude, the more peaceful and joyful you become. Challenges no longer feel like punishments, they become opportunities to grow. Disrespect from others no longer destroys your peace, it reminds you of the value of your own calmness. Even losses and failures can be transformed when viewed with gratitude, because they carry lessons and build strength. In the end, gratitude is more than just a practice. It is a mindset, a way of living. When you live with gratitude, you choose to focus on abundance rather than lack, blessings rather than problems, peace rather than anger. Life will never be free of challenges, but with gratitude, you will always find reasons to smile, to stay calm, and to remain centered. Replacing anger with gratitude is not about ignoring reality. It is about choosing the best reality for your mind and heart. Anger consumes energy, while gratitude creates energy. Anger damages relationships, while gratitude strengthens them. Anger blinds you to what is good, while gratitude opens your eyes to the beauty all around you. When you live in gratitude, anger loses its place in your life, and peace becomes your permanent companion.